Okay, well, good morning, everybody. How are you? Does this seem like a crazy week? Anybody feeling that it's fall finally? Some of you have been able to experience that, but for those of us out here on the West Coast, we just barely got it this week. And now we're ready to have Christmas. Okay. Okay. So Lindsay Bunting, are you home?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. And I'm sorry about the delay. I had to add a waiting room. I'm trying to see if there are other options, but so hopefully I'll stay on top of that today. Anyway, we are going to postpone our conversation about Daughters in My Kingdom for a bit, just because I totally forgot to let people know about that. So that's 100% my bad. So I apologize. So we will move on to other topics for November. So we're open to all kinds of things. I have things on my heart that I might share later on, but I feel like we need to go to you ladies first and see if there are things that you'd like to share for today as we get started. Things, anything from the past month, from the things we were talking about, the things you've been learning about and experiencing, or things you're starting already on November, or thoughts you have about, I don't know, this time of year, things that are happening with you, changes that you're making, experiences that you've had with other people, any of that. We'd love to hear from you. And Lindsay, you too, if you have thoughts to start off today.
Um, just a second. I started reading in the Mother's Learning Library music book, and I loved the first just few pages I read. But what really stood out to me was that if we really want these like lessons to stick with us, and like the music or whatever it is that we're learning to become part of us, like we have to put the work in. And there's been a lot of things lately that I'm like, well, I just don't really feel like doing that. Like I want to do what I feel like doing, but that's not really how it. Sometimes we have to put the work in that doesn't sound fun at first to really make it stick. Like when you're learning piano or something like that, where you're
Mhm.
like, I don't want to do it anymore, but you do and you push through, and then it's like you learn so much more through those challenging learning moments. So there's books that I want to read, and then that came up somewhere else too. I think Ida said something this week about um, those are the great books, the ones that we know that we should read, but we just don't really want to because they're so thought-provoking that it's exhausting. So that's been on my mind the last couple of days. The like, how do we make ourselves put the work in?
Oh, that's really good. Those are good thoughts. How do we motivate ourselves to do those things? How do we do that? How do we do the hard things? Because we're expecting and wanting our families to do that, right? And then we kind of forget about our component. Yeah, I was looking to see, Ida shared that it's just from the preface of Out of the Best Books, and it's so good. Just that beginning part, it's the beginning articles, I guess, in that book. And this is the one by Mortimer J. Adler. And he talks about what makes a great book. He's the same guy who wrote the book How to Read a Book, and I had each of my children read it during their junior high, starting high school years. It's a great reference. It's a really good book, actually. Teaches you how to analyze and what, Lindsay? I'm trying to think of the word. That's not the word I want. But how to determine whether it's worthy or not. What?
Discern.
Yeah, probably discern, whether it's a book of value or not, one that you want to include, that you want to take the time to read. Anyway, this quote that Ida shared from that book says, "The richness of great books shows itself in the many levels of meaning they contain. They lend themselves to a variety of interpretations. This does not mean that they are ambiguous or that their integrity is compromised. I thought that was an interesting, like, pay attention. This, I'm not saying this. Sometimes just the counter phrase helps me understand more what the person is trying to say, the different interpretations complement one another. Okay, now the print's going to get tiny. So, and allow the reader to discover the unity of the work from a variety of perspectives. We can always go deeper into great books. I loved that phrase too, because that is so true. And then he continues, as sources of enlightenment, they are inexhaustible. That's a pretty powerful phrase to say that great books are inexhaustible sources of enlightenment. So that would be a great maybe thing to think about when you're trying to get yourself motivated to get into the hard stuff, Mark Twain once remarked that the great books are the books that everyone wishes he had read, but no one wants to read. People wish they had read them because they are the indispensable material of a liberal education. So you have to have those. They shy away from reading them because these books require thought. The great books are not easy to read. No one should expect to understand them very well on a first reading, not even to master them fully after many readings. I have often said that they are the books which are over everyone's head all of the time. That is why they must be read and reread. That is also why they are good for us. Only the things which are over our head can lift us up. And that I loved too. Anyway, those are such good thoughts. But I want to add that I feel like if you have the Spirit with you as you're reading those things, that you're able to learn and pick up so much more than maybe you would have without that. So, because I feel like, yes, you have to do the deep thinking part, right? But I feel like we do get extra help there, and I don't feel like it's as challenging, or does that make sense? It's not, this insurmountable task, I guess. Any thoughts on that? On great books? Oh, here we go. Chat. Oh, okay. So the author, well, this is Out of the Best Books, which is a collection, a series of 5 books that were available for the Relief Society, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a literature class. And so you can still find them. You can get them in used bookstores, things like that. And then I think the one that you have, Mercedes, is that the one by S. Michael Wilcox? Yes. Okay. And so that's a little bit different, but that one I want to know, because I love the things that I've read from him, especially the 10 people I want to meet, after this life or something. That's the one I'm reading right now. Anyway, so that one is different. I'm anxious to read that one too. So this is a 5-volume series, and it was provided so that the ladies would be able to read some short selections of books and poetry and then discuss them together, which is what we like to do. So it's the preface and the initial I'm trying to think of, they're like essays at the beginning of that book. And this particular one is written by Mortimer. That's a great name, right? Mortimer J. Adler, Adler. He's the guy, he with Clifton Fadiman, they are the ones that put together the Great Books of the Western World, that large volume of books that I love, and you can find sometimes. Used. Anyway, so he wrote How to Read a Book. And that, I'm guessing that essay, I didn't go look that up, I couldn't remember for sure, but either that essay prompted how to read a book, or it's, and it's included in that book or something. I'm not sure the order of how those things came to be, but How to Read a Book is a good book to have and to read as well, to help you discern. It talks about how you flip through a book, look at the table of contents, look at maybe read through the foreword or some of the comments. Maybe read some selections, and he teaches you the ways that you can kind of analyze a book, and then ways to read it. He also is the one that I learned, never read a book without a pencil in hand, because you want to take notes, you want to, or mark, and save the things that you feel like are important. Okay. Any thoughts on that? Sorry, I asked that question and then I just kept talking.
I have something to share.
Yeah.
So yesterday I was watching a bunch of Dave Ramsey videos, and so I wrote down something that he said that just kind of pricked me. So he was saying it, of course, from the lens of finances, but I was kind of thinking of it in more of a well-educated heart sense, I guess. He said, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but it yields a harvest of righteousness," which I think he was quoting probably Proverbs. And then he said, "Children do what feels good. Adults devise a plan and follow it. One definition of maturity is learning to delay pleasure." So just in relation to this conversation, I guess it kind of pricked me because in some ways I'm like a child and I just kind of want to do whatever I want to do. And I've kind of been feeling some of the same thoughts lately, like just kind of realizing again that to get something out of the books, I have to put something into the books and put forth the effort to actually try these well-educated heart principles more. And that's building maturity, is developing that discipline to actually put forth that effort.
I like that. I like that. And I also think there are two parts of that, because as you were talking, I was thinking about both sides of that phrase. And I want you to repeat that if you don't mind. One definition of maturity is learning to postpone, deny,
Learning to delay pleasure.
delay. Okay, I knew I didn't have that right. That word correct. Learning to delay pleasure. So just to throw a little thing out there, I was thinking this week, it was a conversation I was having with somebody about our Pinehurst Academy for Young Ladies, and how as they have decided to sort of delay, not delay pleasure, they've sort of started to delay the idea about maturity, and just have fun, the kinds of things that they're able to experience. So I think somewhere in there, there's a balance, this idea of, yes, being responsible, delaying pleasure as far as, I need to buckle down and do those things that maybe are hard, but they'll be so good for me. At the same time, as mothers, sometimes the hard part for us is having fun, not doing the responsible things, like maybe, I don't know, and actually stopping and being present, and playing with our children or doing something, for us. Yeah, Lindsay.
I think it can kind of be the same thing, because like for me, what I want to do is clean the house, but the hard thing is stopping and playing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of depends on where we're at and what is necessary in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Melanie. I love that you brought that up, because that's a good thing to think about. Where are you in that? And, what's most beneficial for you, for your growth, and development. I don't know. That's interesting. Did any of you happen to read the post written by Beth Boyle in Mighty Networks this week about she and her daughters going on the hike with Dr. Pablo? Oh, before I go into that, I want to read Melanie's comment because I really like it. Hold on, I just disappeared off my screen. It takes discipline or maturity to decide what's best for us to do in the moment, which may be the playful things. Yeah. Very good. I like that. Okay, let me share this because I really liked what she wrote. I really liked what she wrote. And then she and I ended up having a very long conversation yesterday. We had a Zoom meeting for a little over an hour, and it was delightful. It was really good. She reached out and wanted to know about our academy. So, okay, so she says, it's a little bit long, and if you want to stop me, I'll try to be looking to see if you want to stop and just interrupt me. And if you have comments to make along the way. Recently, 2 of my daughters and I went on a hike for a biology class with a group led by Dr. Pablo Riboldi. The minute we were on the trail with him, he was pointing things for us to see, some of which we wouldn't have been aware. He deepened our understanding of nature and explained things that we might never have considered. He related to us on the level of the children there. The experience I had with my girls was enhanced and enriched by the knowledge of our guide. So that right there is a good place just to pause. So she said again, hold on, I got it. The experience I had, I'm just gonna, not even her girls' experience, but the experience that she had was enhanced and enriched by the knowledge of the guide. So there's lots of ways to think about that. The guide could be the person who wrote the book that you're sitting down and reading, right? That person is guiding you. And thank you. That person is guiding you through that experience, right? And this knowledge and understanding of the guide was so very helpful to her. I love that. Okay, going on. In the past, I have been on hikes with my children, and we love to try and identify plants, especially the flowers. We try to keep our eyes open for the small wonders of nature. I understand the value of looking for flowers and butterflies, caterpillars and beetles, bubbling brooks and glass-like lakes. It is important for me to stand with them in places filled with wonder and point out that God is wonderful. I loved that too, just this understanding she has of kind of her place there in that that thing. I know that is where to start with a child, but how many more wonders were we able to see and comprehend on the hike with Dr. Pablo, a guide who had a greater knowledge of the world around us? I began to see immediately the parallels between this hike with Dr. Pablo and the value of a guide in the pursuit of knowledge as a child becomes a young adult. I understood more clearly that as parents and mentors of young adults, we need to have paid the price to gain knowledge or find a mentor who has, because if we don't understand where to lead children and students, they become frustrated and uninterested. The realm of the intellect is challenging and needs a guide to tailor the education to the student. And besides, they sense our cheap tricks when we push instead of lead. That one is really important. I think it's fine to not know a lot and be out there wondering and, enjoying the experience with your children. That's a good experience on its own. But this idea of they'll see through those cheap tricks if you're trying to push them, and not lead them was a really good point to bring up, I thought. She said the success of our hike depended completely upon Dr. Pablo's previous experience. Because he had run this trail a few times before, he was able to talk to us effortlessly as we panted our way up. That would be me. He patiently stopped with us so we could rest and took the opportunity to teach us more. When we got to a trail that wasn't easily recognizable, he confidently led the way. He took us farther and higher than any of us had planned. Sorry. And what beautiful views we saw. I loved that idea. I loved that thought. And I can tell you, if you're starting to panic right now and thinking, oh, holy cow, how am I going to do that? I can't be, years above and ahead of my children. My experience has been, you can be a chapter ahead and that's all it takes, just a tiny bit ahead, and you can lead them, especially because we have the benefit of the Spirit with us. Okay, continuing. It wasn't easy for any of us. That's important too. But we felt triumphant as we reached our destination. I love that. Yes, Lindsay, a step ahead. That's perfect. I love that. The entire way, Dr. Pablo invited us into a deeper realm of knowledge and inspired us to know more. So that sentence, I'm going to read it again. What are the words that jump out to you in this sentence? We'll stop and talk about it. I have to find it again. Hold on. The entire way, Dr. Pablo invited us into a deeper realm of knowledge and inspired us to know more. So, what did you hear? Everybody's afraid to talk over somebody else.
I don't want to talk too much. I was waiting for somebody else. I heard invite. So it needs to be an invitation, and inspire.
Yeah, and those are words we hear, right, on a fairly regular basis, this idea of inviting and inspiring. I think those are good for us to remember.
that's always been my biggest question in parenting. Like, how do I inspire my children to do these things? How do I inspire them to love learning? How do we become inspiring to our children?
Well, I just re-listened to the recording, one of these recordings from back near the beginning. It's number 14. And so it's way back. But I felt inspired. I mean, I was told to listen to that recording or, the whole thing. And so if just a few days ago I did that. Now I send that occasionally to people I feel inspired to send it. Send it to this person and encourage them to watch it. Okay. But it had been a long time since I'd watched it. And so I watched it. And that's the one that's the discussion with my daughter, Sarah. It was the second time she came and talked with the mothers. And she's telling about her experiences in homeschool and her transition to college and life. And there are so many good things in there. It's just a wonderful, wonderful one to watch. So it's number 14. And there are so many things that can give you hope and encouragement that just a little bit of goodness goes a really long way. And just a little bit of parents just making a genuine effort to do their best is inspiring to a child. So many times it's just you living a higher life, you reaching, like Melanie was kind of talking about earlier, you being willing to make that effort to do a little more. A lot of it would be best all of it would be best if you would take seriously the charge to hear him, to go and ask, what do I need to be working on? What do I need to do this week, right? We do it. Hopefully we're now doing it. We're learning from Lindsay Bunting, and we do it for our families, right? We check in and find out and write down, okay, what is that child going to need this week? What does this child need? What does my husband need from me this week? How do I move forward? What do I need? Where am I? And what do you need me to be working on? He can inspire us as to what to really, so much of what we do. I'm not even going to outline the things, but so much of what we do, he can inspire us as to what we need. And he knows which are the things that are going to inspire our children. Does that make sense? I don't mean to make it too simple. And at the same time, it really is simple. It's just remembering that that's how we do it.
I was just typing it in the things. It's just remembering. Like, the second I forget that that's how I do it, then I start to flounder. Like, what am I doing again? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. And then as soon as I remember, oh yeah, I just ask and I listen, and then I'll know, and then I don't have to worry. But yeah, it's the remembering to do that. That's the tricky part.
Right. Oh, okay. So I'm going to keep going. Oh, Ida, we read the quote that you shared with us from Mortimer Adler earlier. So good. So good. And now I'm reading Beth Boyle's post that she shared on Mighty Networks. It was so good about her hike with Dr. Pablo. Okay. So the entire way, Dr. Pablo invited us into a deeper realm of knowledge and inspired us to know more. That's what we were just talking about. He knew enough about the subject to have the confidence to teach in response to questions he got or interest he saw in his fellow hikers. If an idea hit a vein of inspiration, he went deeper. His ability to be agile in response to his students was a key to success and inspiration. For me, it was the lichen and the moss that are slowly decomposing the rock. Decomposing the rock, she says. What do you have when rock is broken down? Dr. Pablo asked. Sand was someone's reply. Yes, in the soil you will find particles of the surrounding rocks. She said, I had never looked at soil that way. I knew the soil was made of decomposed organic matter, but I hadn't considered that it was partly decomposed rock. I picked up a handful, and sure enough, I could see the sparkly quartz and other bits from the granite rocks around us. I couldn't unsee the sparkles the whole rest of the way. I wondered at the lichen and its slow, patient work. After teaching us about the many decomposers all along the way, how nothing is wasted, how God set up everything to be recycled and used again to create life, Dr. Pablo simply said, because life wins. Life wins. God is life. Of course it wins. Our guide knew how to point us to truth. So are you enjoying this little? I just loved it. I loved what she said, what she shared. And in talking to her, she said, "Oh, I worked on this for so long," which I never do, which is why my stuff is always a stumbling block, I think, to people, because I just, you know. Anyway, as parents and mentors, if we haven't been there before, we are too distracted to see what inspires the child. I loved that. And like I said, we could just have been there before, just once. We're just like Lindsay put, we're just staying one step ahead. Venturing into the realm of the mind is intimidating and needs heart to guide more, not less than in childhood. I loved that too. So as they're getting older, we need the heart even more to guide us into this mind realm of learning. It is difficult territory. Had Dr. Pablo been leading us on a trail he'd never been before, he would have spent time with his map and his compass instead of nurturing our love of the world around us. Now, spending time with his map and his compass and working with the child and helping them see how you do all that, that's not a bad thing. It's kind of this good, better, best is how I'm kind of seeing it. And so this little post, this little mom, aha, is offering us a way to see another way, another higher level kind of, and the benefits of us continuing to nurture our hearts so that we are able to play that role for our children, which I love these thoughts. He would have had us all bring the biology book, and he'd be reviewing what he had read recently but didn't quite grasp, again, distracted by figuring it out for himself. I am confident that our experience wouldn't have been something to talk about. Many times we feel we can push our children or students into the knowledge we think they should gain, but lacking the understanding ourselves, we lack the ability to call to them. Just some of these phrases that she put in here, knowing that she worked on this, helps me to see, oh, wow, these are powerful phrases even. Yeah, Ida.
This reminds me of President Eyring. He gave a talk in a women's conference not long, it's been a few years now, talking to the women about finding ways to teach the scriptures to their children, and that they would be finding ways to read them ahead of time. I remember him talking about that, to prepare ahead of time, to like we already went on the trail, so then we can point out the things, and that it reminds me of that, because I've been thinking about that a little bit in our scripture study with the kids. Like, if I'm finding time to like read ahead of time and prepare ahead of time, then when we sit down and have our study, I know what to share and the Spirit can guide me. But if I'm just getting into it myself, I'm kind of floundering. I mean, I still can share things, but it's not as powerful. I feel like it's missing something. And so I just love that. Like, that it's the same thing. Like, if we want to be able to really be a powerful tool, we have to have figured out how to do the work before we get there.
Yeah, I love that comparison. And that's so true. And I love that in that talk, like you said, President Eyring reminded us, or as he was counseling us to do that teaching, said that we would be blessed to find time to do it ahead of time. Because you can look at the situation and think, I can't, there's no time. I'm already stretched thin. But in that same, I always call it, that it's just the tithing principle, and it applies to everything. And if you will just ask him to help you find the time, and then you make the commitment to do it when it's hard, do it, just like make that commitment to find that time and squeeze it in there and do it anyway, be obedient to that, then it's just, things will kind of open up. And it's not like your day will be just the most organized, amazing, incredible, day, but but you'll find the way through it. Have any of you had that kind of an experience? If you, I mean, I saw some heads nodding like, yes, you kind of knew, yeah, I've experienced that, you know. And for me, it's just the tithing principle, because it's the same thing with tithing. You know, you pay that tithing. It's hard sometimes, like really hard sometimes, but it just, my goodness, things work out somehow. And I love to see that. I love to see it in all the different ways. Hey, Cadence, it's so good to have you here. All right, so we're talking about Beth Boyle's wonderful post in Mighty Networks, as she's talking about the beauty of being ahead of your children on the path so that you can more fully lead and guide them. And I just, yeah, I love it. Okay, going back to the comments, because I love to come here and see. Okay. So Lindsay's sharing in the comments some of the things we were talking about, and I love that. Thank you. So she had said, the experience I had was enhanced and enriched by the knowledge of the guide. I just loved that. And then Amber shared, I've been reading Teaching with Power by Tad and Catherine Callister, and they talk a lot about the power of inspiring over motivating, and inspiring over entertaining, preparing ourselves through the power of the Spirit. That is really good. That's wonderful. That sounds like something I need to read. Teaching with Power. Okay. And yeah, the phrase life wins. And I couldn't unsee the sparkles. Yeah, all of this is so good. It's so good. Okay, I'm going to continue on. And like I said, just interrupt me if you want to share something. I keep losing my place, so hold on. Okay, I loved where we stopped there. Many times we feel we can push our children into the knowledge we think they should gain, but lacking the understanding ourselves, I'm just rereading this phrase, we lack the ability to call to them. I just love that. When we sense that we are not an adequate guide, we lose heart. Okay, and again, very, very powerful phrase. Don't we do that so often as mothers? And so many times I think it's, you know, it's also just those little whisperings of Satan, you know, you don't know enough. How do you think you can teach your children if you don't, you know, whatever it is, right? How can you be a light or an example to somebody else? Look at all your mess. Look at all your problems. No, and yet there is so much good we can do by nurturing ourselves, filling up our cup, you know, filling our reserves, however you want to say that, and then letting him work through us. Yeah, there's a balance of preparing and learning to follow the Spirit, right? Because the Spirit will guide and direct you if you're willing. You know, and I think a little bit of that is what Lindsay and I are experiencing every single week with Pinehurst, which is what, Lindsay? What are we being directed to do, and what are we experiencing? It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And it's every week. If we've prepared ourselves and we've been reading and doing the things that we need to be doing to follow the Spirit, like Ida was saying, if we've done the preparation ourselves, then we're much more inspired with the girls, and we have these things that just come up so naturally. As they talk about stuff, we're like, oh, that reminds me of this. And this last week was so good with this whole rabbit trail thing, because the week before we had briefly mentioned in a book or something about Vermeer's The Girl with the Pearl Earring. And one of the girls was like, oh, I did that as a project with my brother, and she posed for it. It was just like a really brief mention of it. Well, then that week, I feel like I already mentioned this here, but I don't think I did. Then throughout the week, that came up where, maybe I did. Did I share this last Friday? Anyway, I'll share it again.
I don't
I don't remember. Where like my husband put on a documentary about Vermeer, and then I ran into a really bad reprint of his at the thrift store, but still it was there. And so then when Friday came and it came up again, I told him about the documentary. Then Lori's like, oh, I've seen this other video with Vermeer, and it talked all about that. So she pulled that up. It just like one thing led to another, because we had all been doing our preparation and had been.
And the young lady that had talked about her art project, she had brought the pictures on her phone of her modeling as the girl with the pearl earring for this art thing that her brother did. In fact, I'll find it to show you.
Yeah.
But just all of these rich, wonderful things came up, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah, well, none of that was specifically prepared for that day. And that's usually how the Mondays go. The things that we've specifically prepared or talked about, those don't always happen. It's just kind of where the spirit leads the discussion. And yeah.
Okay, so here's the original, right? This is going to be so bad. Wow, and you see how dirty my phone is. Woo. Okay, so this is the original, the girl with the pearl earring. And then I'm going to have to find her. So Lindsay or somebody else is going to have to talk while I find the one that she shared. Or you can just enjoy the stillness. Any of you know the book, The Very Quiet Cricket? And
Lori read that. Lori read it to the girls on Monday, and they sat there so quietly. And these are like 14, 15-year-old girls. And then it would get to the repetitive part and they would repeat it. They were so into it as if they were like 4 years old. It was so cute.
I loved it. I loved it because it's so awesome. It's like, and the little cricket wanted to answer. So he rubbed his wings together, but nothing happened. Not a sound. And they would repeat that, when we got to, I made them do it, but they were they were all into it. And it was so, so quiet. It was awesome. I loved it. Okay. Here's the redo. Hold on. Here's the redo that she did with her brother. So she posed as the girl with the pearl earring, and her brother did the picture. Isn't that cool? Just as an experience to do that. Anyway, but yeah, this whole discussion came up, and we watched on Great Art Explained, which is on YouTube, and they have a tough time deciding what is actually great art. But when they are actually talking about great art, it's lovely. It's really, really interesting. And so there was a Vermeer painting that was discussed called The Milkmaid. And so it was about, I don't know, 12 minutes or something long. I don't know. Anyway, but we watched it, and it was lovely. So we just had this wonderful experience, and we had talked about the Baader-Meinhof principle the week before. And then Lindsay had several things come up that week, and some of the girls had experienced the Baader-Meinhof principle. Anyway, so we talked about that. We did this book reading. Things just flow, and we get to the end of the little get together, whatever it is we're doing, our little experience. And Lindsay and I just look at each other like, how did that happen? That was so good. It was so good. But it was completely, we filled our hearts, and the spirit worked through us. And it's just amazing what can happen when you do that, when you let go, pry your fingers off the steering wheel, don't be like me and sit on the little space between the driver's seat and the passenger seat, still trying to, grab the wheel. Get in the back seat, let him guide you. Just all week that has been coming up for me, the beauty of what can happen when we let him guide. Lindsay.
I was just going to say that contrast, we say that contrast helps us see. There's weeks where I show up and I think I have not fed my heart this week. I really hope Lori has. And we haven't even talked about things. And I get there, I'm like, I have nothing to give. I'm just here to sit and partake. And luckily Lori has so many beautiful, there's a couple weeks where she's just had so many beautiful things to share. And I am just feeling empty because I did not feed my heart that week. And so when you do both, you can totally feel the difference.
That's really sweet of you. But that contrast is so good to experience, and I've experienced it enough times that I think I'm just learning a little bit, the importance of, I've got to do that preparation, because I know that difference. But anyway, you're very cute. You're very sweet. It's the two of us, it's a combination of that back and forth. I love these comments. I think the spirit directs more readily when we have prepared ourselves. Amber, that's so true. So true. And that's what Lindsay was talking about. I think that preparation, and this is Ida saying, isn't just about what you study, but that you are putting yourself in a place to have an open heart. I love that your heart, that open heart, is a teachable heart. It can be led, and then it all comes together. I agree wholeheartedly with that, Ida. Thank you. it's been interesting, this Beth Boyle that I've been reading from. I mean, I read her little thing. One of the other grandmas read it. She gets on the Marco Polo group, the grandma Marco Polo group, and says, ladies, have you read this post? It's so good. And so, we're all reading it. And then Beth reaches out and says, hey, I heard about something. You're doing something with young girls, and I really want to know about it. And it just worked out. We were able to talk. We had this lovely Zoom conversation yesterday. Why was I saying that? Oh, because see, the whole thing, it was just evident that she has been led here. She has been working for a few months trying to figure out, I'm supposed to do something with my 14-year-old daughter. I don't know what it is. And she's been, no surprise, right? She has been trying to develop this, like, here's what we're going to do. Here's the lesson plans. Here's what and Lindsay and I know that is not how he does it. That's just not how it's working, because we tried that route too. And nothing worked when we were trying that. And she said, it just kept falling apart. I thought, I know I'm supposed to do something for her. And it just kept falling apart, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And then it just popped up something, and I don't even remember what I would have shared, but it was something about taking the girls to the Huntington or something. And she reaches out, and she knows now what she's supposed to do. And again, this is not what we're doing, is not like this model. It is a model, but it's not to say, okay, do what we did on week 1, do what we did on week 2, do what we did on week 3. No, it's just that do this same pattern of nurturing your heart and then letting it flow through you, whatever it is that's supposed to happen. Anyway, okay, back to Beth. Well, actually, does anybody have something they want to share? Because I'm talking so much. Yeah, Cadence, please.
All right, closed it up somehow. Okay. I just want to say that I started reading some of the Delphian stuff about Britain or the British Isles. And I've tried to start the Delphian before, and it just the timing hasn't been right. The topic hasn't been quite interesting enough for me yet. I want to, but it's just not there. So I got to read some of it this week, and it was so great. And I was excited about it because I have British ancestors. And so I don't know, I've always connected with that topic. And so it's been really great. And the reading hasn't been too heavy, like too difficult or anything. It's been perfect. So I'm doing like the September 6th reading or something, way back there. But I like that it's got these little things, because then I'm like, oh, I can do the next one. It's motivating. I like it.
That's so good. I love it.
The other thing I wanted to share was that this year I started in the summertime, but I have not been planning what we do as a family for each month. It just happens. I'll think of ideas, stuff comes to my mind, and then we do it that day. Or I'll put something in my folder and like, maybe we'll get to that, maybe we won't. But I haven't been doing that strict, we do this on this day, we do this on this day. And it's so freeing and pleasant. And we actually study more than I thought we would. We study more than when we just did 1 week was one topic. And we keep coming back to things, like we'll do something that, was part of last month, but it flows into this month. It's just so great. And my kids are making these connections, and I'm making connections. Yesterday was the best day ever. My kids got out of school early, so we just did a bunch of stuff with rocks, and we started making rock candy, the crystal things, and then I just read them tons of stories. Oh, it was so great. I just love it when they're home, because then I can do all the well-educated hard things, which I really like. So I'm doing way better, Lori, just heads up. Great.
I'm so glad.
It took a couple of those sick days when they were home, but they're doing really well now. So I'm really happy.
I am so, so glad. That makes me super happy. So Cadence and I had a long conversation one Friday after our group, so we were talking about all this stuff, it just, man, we can get ourselves tied up and make it more difficult, and then when we realize, wow, if I let go of the reins, or get in the back seat, like, oh man, he will direct it and it'll be so good. So, so good. Oh, thank you, my dear, sweet friend. I just love you, Cadence. Okay, I'm going back. I love this. I like the phrase from her post that talks about standing in places of wonder. That could mean what you had said, Ida, keeping our hearts open and in a place of wonder. And then Melanie asked, how are you thinking of what to do then? You make a list and then pick and choose what you feel like. The ideas just come to you on the spot. So that's a question to you, Cadence. Oh, I see you answered, but go ahead.
It just comes, or I'll see it in a post or something, or I'll remember something we did last year. It just comes. It's so interesting because it's, I don't know, it's just freeing that I don't have to plan so much because it just comes to me. I really feel like it's the spirit that just, brings all these ideas and fun things to my mind. And sometimes it's what my kids want to do as well. I don't know.
So you actually let your kids lead some of the discovery and learning?
Yeah.
What?
Well, Zephyr's super into geology right now, and so we do that all the time. But we just run with it this month because she loves it. I actually got her a little geology bag. It's for Christmas, but I'm dying because I want to get it out now. With a little pick and magnifying glass and a bag to hold stuff in, and she's gonna die, and I'm gonna die because I'm so excited.
I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. Oh, this is so good. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like when you realize, whoa, I've been limiting his power. We could do so much more. Okay, Ida, you have something to share. I want you to share.
So I love that, Cadence. And I feel the same. Like when I'm like planning too much and I'm like holding on too tight, nothing goes well. But when I'm just like, I'll like get a thought and I'm learning slowly, because I'm real slow, to pay attention to those, like, okay, well, let's just do that. That's like, I have to remind myself, like Elder Bednar said, like, we have the Holy Ghost with us all the time. So those thoughts that we have, unless they're something evil, that's probably the Spirit being like, hey, you should do this. And when I listen to those things, like Cadence was saying, it goes so much better. And I don't feel like I feel like I'm inviting the Spirit, and I'm inviting that curiosity, and like, and I loved what you said about listening too. So I had an experience yesterday that was not fun, but I feel like it was to teach me something. And so I've been having some conversations with my daughter about goals, and she's not used to like, okay, well, so these are my goals, then you help me accomplish them. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You have to work towards your goals. I'm not going to force you to do it or push you or pester you. I will help you if I can, and we were kind of going back and forth, and we had a couple of conversations that weren't fun. And she was frustrated by the conversation, and so was I. And so then I was like, and so then,
that says a lot, what you just did, because we, as moms, how many times do you feel that?
yes, right? You're like,
okay.
And it wasn't just like her, like I was frustrated with her, but I was also frustrated with myself, because I was like, that is not how I wanted that conversation to go. And I don't feel like that was not good, right? That was a fail. I'm going to have to regroup and try that again. Mm-hmm. So then I went to have a conversation. I was with my kids at my parents' house. And my dad and I have this interesting relationship that's not always great, but we try. And I wanted to share this thing with him. And so I was like telling him, hey, I learned this thing. It was so cool. And I was super excited about it. And I shared this thing with him. And then he was like, kind of just threw it back at me like, yeah, that's wrong. And I was so like irritated. And then we sort of got in a little bit of an argument. And I'm not saying that that was good, and it wasn't necessarily all his fault, but anyways, so we had this conversation, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's happening here. Like, I don't feel like you're listening to me. I don't want to listen to anything you have to say, and it's just not a positive experience. And so I left, and I was super frustrated. And I was sitting at this park just letting the kids play, and I was thinking about it. And I've been thinking about it since then. I was kind of talking to my husband, and I realized that I had a couple of realizations that I thought were helpful for me. So one of them was my dad was frustrated about something, and it was coming out in this other way because he didn't know how to talk to me about the thing he was really frustrated about. So then he was being kind of nitpicky about this other thing that I was trying to tell him about. So that I was like, okay, like I'm feeling like he was really irritated with me, but he didn't want to tell me. And so I'm like, okay, we need to talk about that thing and get that resolved, right? But the other thought I had was about the conversations that I had with my daughter, and I was like, okay, she was super excited about these goals. Like and I was thinking about how I felt, and I was like, I was super excited about this thing. And even if I was wrong, and the thing that I understood was wrong, even if he had some wisdom or knowledge to share with me, the way that it was shared made me reject it, right? Like I didn't want to listen. And so I thought about that in the conversation I had with my daughters, and I was like, I need to listen to them and spend more time acknowledging the good so that they're willing to listen to me. If I actually listen to them instead of just like, yeah, okay, great, you're great, you want to do that, okay, now this is what I need to tell you. And sometimes I feel like I have conversations like that with my kids, and that's what I'm doing. Like I'm not actually listening, And so I love that about like listening. So this morning for our we started our morning, and I was like, okay, what are we going to do today? And I was kind of having that, like, I'd been trying to think and prepare myself in other ways, but I wasn't really sure what we were going to do. And I had a thought, I should sit down with the kids and discuss their goals. And I've done this before, and it's kind of like a PPI, but my husband can't always be there. So I'm just like, well, I'm just going to do this. And then I talk to him about it, and we discuss or whatever. But anyways, so I'm like, we should do that. And so I felt in a better place having had this experience, and then I was able to sit down, and I had been feeling like I needed to do that for a while. So I did that, and I just was able to talk to my oldest too. But we were able to talk about a lot of important things, and we had a really good conversation. And I was like more mindful of like, I need to listen and understand where they're coming from, and have a different like the spirit, more in this conversation. And it was so much better and so positive, right? Like feeling a connection with them, and they feeling a connection with me, instead of like both of us walking away like ah! And I mean, I still need to go talk to my dad and figure all that fun out, but it was maybe an opportunity for me to see like from the other angle, like what that's like, and irrelevant of, all that needs to be sorted out, but just recognizing maybe how the other person feels in that situation and helping me be a better, how I can be better. Anyways, that was an experience I had today and the last couple of days.
I love that you shared that. It's so good. And it's so hard to be, it's so hard when you have the vantage point that you have, and you can look at what they're saying and so easily say, nope, that's not going to work. Okay, here's why. But then you've just dashed all their hopes and dreams to pieces. And I was very good at that, because I was so good at seeing the practical part of it. And I wanted to be helpful and show them, okay, that's not going to work, but maybe this will. Here's my great ideas, and let's do my stuff, not your stuff. I didn't think I was saying that, but I was saying that. Nope, you don't know. Your ideas aren't good enough. They're not going to work. Let me share mine, and you can do what I think. I still do that sometimes. Don't say anything, Lindsay. Just kidding. But I do. Oh, I don't mean to, and I'll catch myself, But my husband is so good about validating what they're feeling right now, and their excitement about it, and letting them talk about it, and letting them share all these things, and not just putting a wet blanket over it, right away, like smothering the whole thing. I was really good at smothering. Maybe it's the cuddling, aspect of mothers. I'm not sure, but the smothering came very easily to me. And it was so much harder to say, wow, that sounds really cool. I can see why you'd be excited about that. Tell me more. Which is what, like, the last thing you want, is to hear more about the details of those things. But yes, you're inspiring rebellion in your children and pushing them away if you do that. They're so, so true. And my husband would say, don't say anything if you don't have the Spirit. The Spirit will tell you, will know exactly what to say in answer to that if you're supposed to say anything. Maybe you don't even say anything the first time around. Maybe they just talk. Maybe then they think about it a bit and go, well, that part won't probably actually work. I wonder if, But when we shut them down, I'm not saying you, Ida, because I'm just saying, yes, I remember all those conversations, right? But if you can not shut them down, let them run with it a little bit, maybe not even start it. I don't know, what exactly, you're talking about, but let them have their thoughts and let them sit with it and encourage them to, pray. Yes. But encourage your kids to pray about the thing and, work through it, write it down, maybe whatever. But yeah, Lindsay's saying I have to pray for the right words all the time before I make things worse by opening my mouth. Yeah. That's a hard one. I was like, duct tape. Can I just have, just talk, you guys, talk, tell me, just don't let me talk back. I mean, and when Sarah was old enough, she'd just say, Mom, I just want to tell you about it. I don't want you to say anything back. Or you can nod your head or something, but I just want to share it with you. I don't want you to, anyway. Yeah, Ida, you're also robbing them of the opportunity to learn. Yeah. But I love that you were able to have your own experience, feel what it felt like, and then take that back to your parenting. I love that. I think that's beautiful when Heavenly Father gives us those opportunities. And I do see them as gifts from Him to help us learn something that we were just having a hard time figuring out. But He knows, if she can feel it, then she'll know. And then she'll have the tools that she needs to be able to help inspire her children. I love it. I love it. Also, this conversation with Beth that's on Mighty Networks is absolutely worth going and reading. It's very long. There's so much more. And it's her transition, how she finally got to where she realized the need to feed her own heart and kind of how she's working through that. There's so much good here. I encourage you to read it. If you don't have access to it, let me know and I'll get you access to it. But I've enjoyed this conversation discussing these things, this idea of being a guide, being ahead on the path, being prepared, having nurtured your heart and then letting Him fill the rest. Remember that part is, I'm going to fill my cup and my cup's like this big. How is a cup this big full of even all the good stuff going to help anybody? It's probably not. It's a teeny tiny. But when you add to it, when He magnifies it, and you you really do ask for the Spirit to help you as you're doing whatever it is, talking to whomever you're talking to or trying to help. He's going to magnify it and make it enough. He's going to make it so much more, but you have at least done your part. And yes, Lindsay, I love it. Lindsay, can you just say that? I love that.
I always just think of the loaves and the fishes, like it's not enough. It's clearly not enough, but it's all we have. And He makes it enough.
Yeah. Thank you. So remember that, moms, if you're feeling discouraged, because you're not enough, well, of course you're not enough. None of us are enough. We just can't be. We aren't. We're, fairly pathetic, but we're His and He loves us and He'll help make it enough. He always will. I love, Cadence, that you were able to share experiences with us about your week that were proof of that, and the excitement, the genuine excitement that we saw and felt in you because of that. That was wonderful. I also have to say that it's very comforting to see Linnell back in her kitchen making food. It just feels right. All's right with the world. I love it. Oh, it's so good. Okay, my friends, does anybody have some thoughts for us as we're wrapping up today, just to take us out of this discussion and move us on to our weekend and our week as we wait for next Friday?
I have thoughts. My- I was watching Edie's presentation about the harp, and it was a great presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciated her takeaway of go after your dreams. It was very inspiring. And so whatever your dreams are, if it's with your kids or personal or doing a Pinehurst Academy, that's also very inspiring to me to see how Lori and Lindsay are taking this dream that they had and are running with it. And now look at all the other people who are learning from their example and will be able to replicate that. And that's really neat. Maybe one day I'll be able to do something like that. So it's fun to hear the experiences that you're having, and I appreciate that you share them. Something that Lindsay said about motivation reminded me of a thought I had, that if we wait for motivation to come, it's never going to come for us. And we have to rely on discipline in order to get us started, and discipline gets us motivated to continue. And so if we're focusing on trying to motivate ourselves, a lot of times motivation won't come. And I think that is a balance between heart and mind. Discipline is the mind and motivation is the heart. And we need to have the balance of the two in order to be successful with whatever we want to do, and focus on what knowledge do I need to gain in order to be disciplined, in order to continue with whatever task I want to do. And then once we get the ball rolling, then usually it's motivation that keeps us going, because we have progress or we have results or something is helping us to keep that ball rolling. And something that Ida said about her goals with her daughters, I thought of how isn't it ironic how we as mothers want to be a guide, and we are supposed to be their guides. That's what we've been talking about. But we want to be a guide to prevent them from having their experiences sometimes, where we want them to not feel consequences just because we've been there before. But I think part of the maturity that comes, at least in my journey of motherhood, is that my maturity is that I allow them to make these mistakes, or I allow them to set goals that I think aren't very helpful. And then that gives them their experience. And so very often that's hard for me as a mother, because I want to avoid the problems. I want to avoid the headaches or running into brick walls. And, maybe part of our experience as a mom is to just focus on our own goals and share what we're doing with our children, or help them, or ask them to help us, or encourage them to encourage us in our goals. And as they see us, they learn from our example, because it could be a really obscure concept, like what's a goal and how do I work to a goal, versus, oh, my mom has a goal to wake up at 5:30 and she woke up, and that means she has to go to bed early. And so I can help her in this way. And so seeing how other people reach their goals, I think is a great way to help our children. And then something that Cadence said, that's so great. I can relate to Cadence's just spontaneity and how it's so freeing in not needing to plan, because I've been traveling for 6 months, and we came home this week, and now I'm in my environment. I can set up my rhythm again. We've got our systems. It's what our children are used to. But if I had tried to do all of that for the 6 months of traveling, I would have gone crazy. And I just couldn't fit it all in. I couldn't do it all. And so everything that Marlene teaches about keeping what you are doing well, stick with that, and then add whatever else you can, really helped me stay sane. Because a lot of times we didn't do any schoolwork, and sometimes we did very little. But for that season, it was helpful to keep that mindset and that perspective. Now that we're home, we can get it back in. And so there are seasons for everything, and there's growth that happens in every season. And so I'm grateful for that reminder that I didn't need to do everything, and we don't ever have to do everything. Just doing what feels right in the moment and what inspires us and our hearts will be helpful and will inspire our children as well.
Isn't that nice to have that back? That's great. Thank you so much. I enjoyed those comments. That was such a lovely summary, Linnell. I appreciate that. Cadence, can you just share that? Do you have the background to do that?
Yes. Okay. So I was just saying that I think I said this in there, but then during the summer I was just tracking what we did instead of planning because I wanted to relax over the summer. And then I realized that we were doing stuff all the time. It wasn't necessarily on topic or whatever, but it was learning and it was really cool experiences. And I took pictures and made a page every week. And I've still been making those pages. I don't know how, and I'm not requiring myself to do. I just really want to. And I like seeing, oh, we did this and this and this. It's like a family journal or like record. It's like recording our life, but it's so fun to look back at the pictures. And this was all the time when I didn't plan stuff. And so we've kept going with that. And so now I have several weeks of just all the stuff we did, and it's great. That's all.
I think that's super interesting to hear how it just flows. And she doesn't even know how it is that she's staying on top of it, but you're doing it. But that's what can happen when we let go. Ida. Yeah, okay, similar experience when you started tracking instead of planning. Yeah, I realized how it was so much better. Now, so why don't we do that all the time? Because we're slow learners. We forget and we think, oh no, I need to get control again. I need to, and if we can learn from each other, right? This is so good. I love this. Lindsay Bunting said, your experiences are making me so happy. Yeah.
So I also want to say it's not necessarily about me wanting to be controlling. I just love planning and organizing and oh, this would be really fun and this would be fun. And then actually getting to it doesn't go as I plan. And that's frustrating. But the recording thing is really helpful for that itch to organize because I feel like I got something done. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I
that
think
makes
that might
sense.
be the struggle that I had at least is that I enjoy planning. I like doing that sort of thing. So
Maybe Cadence, when you're doing that recording, you can like organize that into like, okay, we learned these things this day and these are the categories they fit in. So look at all the learning you guys are in these categories. And you're like, you still get to like plan and organize. But,
yes,
but
I use a
you can also
planner
let it
and I write it down and I
free.
categorize it all.
So Lindsay, you can just tell them about that real quickly, just the unplanner side of that, because that's exactly what that is, right?
Yeah, I think they've seen that too. Marlene's idea of the unplanner, and that's what that is. Yeah. So just recording what we've done instead of what we want to do. I'm the same way, Cadence. I want to plan things so bad, and I will spend hours just planning it, knowing that it's not going to work. But I'm having fun planning it anyway. I'm putting together like this home management binder right now because I'm like, that sounds so fun. It probably won't work for anybody else, but I really am enjoying it. But this is just making me so happy because this is how I have homeschooled for so many years, for like all of my years. I try to plan, it doesn't work. We just go with the flow, we follow the spirit, and that's what works. And I know that. And so to hear that this is working for you guys too, it makes me feel so much less alone because I'll share that with people like, we just kind of do what happens. And they're like, and that works. Like, somehow it does. I don't know how to tell you that it does, but it does. So that's why it's making me so happy.
And it's so much more positive. It's a more optimistic thing because I would have my list, my plan, and all that I saw from that was all the things I didn't do that were on my list. Then if you do it the other way and you let the spirit guide, then you get done and you look at all the things you did and it's incredible and you feel great and you're much more motivated, to go on the next day. Sorry, Ida.
No, you're fine. I don't enjoy planning. I mean, we have a love-hate relationship, but I'm like, oh yeah, let's go with the flow. But then I feel this guilt about like, what are we getting anything accomplished? But then when I was at least recording it, at the end, that helped me to see, yeah, we are doing a lot actually. And even if I didn't organize it into whatever, like even if I just was jotting it down like little chicken scratch here, today we did this, oh yeah, we did this, and like there's all these little things all over the place. But then I see we actually did a ton of stuff today and it was good. And that makes me not have the worry that we're not getting anything done. And also, instead of seeing all the failure, I tried to make a plan and nothing worked out. I see all the good too. And so it's just a win-win, really. Love planning or not, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's such a good, I loved it. I loved this conversation. I love the discussion. I love all the positives that we're seeing. And I hope that's being felt by all of us here, and we can feel encouraged as we begin another week and see how it goes and get together next Friday and talk about it. So, oh, thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for being here and sharing. And I look forward to doing it again next Friday. So have a good weekend. Reach out if there's anything you want to continue talking about. Bye, my friends.